Secret United States airfield discovered in Iran. The information gained traction this Tuesday, April 28, 2026. The central point is an asphalt strip located in a remote area near Isfahan, within Iranian territory, close to a sensitive zone linked to the regime's nuclear program. The report is still circulating without independent confirmation, but it has raised serious alarm. If that airstrip was prepared for military use, Washington may be setting up an important mission in the heart of Iran. I'll tell you all about that in a moment, but right now you'll want to be subscribed to the channel to stay well informed. Real-time information with the best journalistic quality you've ever seen. Milson Alvis, the benchmark for credibility. Isfahan is not an ordinary place in this crisis. The region has been linked for years to Iran's nuclear advancement, and that's why any unusual structure nearby draws attention. In the news that's circulating, the paved strip doesn't look like a normal road. It would be an isolated runway, built in an area without much activity, with a size and shape that raise suspicions of use by airplanes and helicopters. In a war scenario, this could mean support for the entry of troops, transportation of equipment, or removal of sensitive material. The impact is direct, because Iran is already under pressure on several fronts. The American naval blockade remains active. The Strait of Hormuz has become the center of the dispute, negotiations have stalled, and United States surveillance in the region has increased. Now, the possible airstrip near Isfahan increases the weight of the crisis. The pressure doesn't seem to be coming only from the sea. It may also be being prepared from the air, with covert routes and a quietly planned operation. At the center of this movement are the United States, Israel, and the Iranian regime. E a Guarda Revolucionária. Washington is trying to prevent Tehran from using the war and the closure of routes as a way to buy time for its nuclear program. Iran tries to show resistance and says it does not accept external orders, but the sequence of events indicates an ever-tightening encirclement. Ships are being stopped, planes are monitoring the region, and now there is suspicion of a clandestine facility within Iranian territory itself. Tehran's recent proposal to end the crisis did not please Trump. According to information circulating in Washington, the Iranian proposal was to lift the blockade, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and leave the nuclear discussion for later. For the United States, that would give the regime a lifeline. Trump wants the opposite, to deal with the enriched uranium now, while Tehran is under pressure. That's why the stalemate continues and the military risk grows. This is the centerpiece of the conflict. Iran is trying to buy time. The United States is trying to prevent this time from turning into a strategic advantage. The possible airstrip in Isfahan comes into play here as a sign of preparation. If a mission is necessary, it would need ground support, air control, intelligence, and a quick withdrawal. None of this fits with improvisation. It fits with calculated action. At the same time, the blockade at sea continues to weigh heavily. Marines from the 31st Expeditionary Unit boarded the commercial ship Blue Star 3 in the Arabian Sea on suspicion of attempting to head to Iranian ports. After the search, the vessel was released because the military concluded that it would not stop in Iran. Even so, the message was clear. Any suspicious ship can be stopped, searched, and required to prove its destination. This kind of action shows that the American strategy is not just talk, it's in practice. The blockade controls routes, cuts off alternatives, and puts pressure on Iranian logistics. For Tehran, every ship that is stopped becomes another sign that their room to maneuver has decreased. For Trump, each interception reinforces the message that the regime will not use maritime trade to escape nuclear pressure. For Trump, the priority is to break the regime's ability to dictate the pace of the crisis. The Revolutionary Guard is seen as a maritime core, the hardcore of this problem. Inside Iran, it concentrates military power, political influence, and control over sensitive areas. The more this group advances in power, the greater the fear that Tehran will accelerate its pursuit of a nuclear weapon. That's why American authorities insist that the nuclear issue cannot be postponed. Waiting in this case would mean allowing the regime to reorganize itself. The possible airstrip near Isfahan also has a psychological effect. For a regime that tries to sell absolute control, the suspicion of a structure like this within its territory is a hard blow. It suggests a failure of surveillance, the presence of foreign intelligence, and vulnerability near a vital area. Even though full confirmation is still lacking, the uncertainty is already taking a toll. Iran needs to explain how a suspicious strip appeared in such a sensitive region. Tehran tries to respond with sovereignty rhetoric. Authorities linked to defense state that the United States is not in a position to dictate policies to independent nations. But the statement loses strength when reality shows something different. The regime gives speeches while facing blockade, surveillance, economic pressure, and suspicion of infiltration. The narrative of strength is shaken because the crisis is not stuck at the border. It seems to have moved into Iran's domestic arena. Trump also stated that Iran had informed the United States that it was in a state of collapse and asked for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Even if the statement is part of the information war, it puts pressure on the Iranian leadership in front of its own public and its allies. The internal situation increases the risk. There are doubts about who is really in command in Tehran and what is the current influence of the Revolutionary Guard in decision-making. In a crisis of this magnitude, confusion at the top levels of power can be fatal. A divided regime takes longer to negotiate, responds poorly to pressure, and can make mistakes. The United States seems to be exploiting exactly this point, keeping Iran under continuous tension. That's why the runway in Isfahan should not be seen as an isolated detail. It appears along with interdictions in the Arabian Sea, nuclear deadlock, port blockades, high tension in the Strait of Hormuz, and American military presence. The sum of these pieces points to a tougher phase of pressure. Washington wants to leave Tehran with no comfortable way out. Either it agrees to address the nuclear program now, or it continues to face siege and the risk of escalation. The important mission underway may not be announced in an interview, it may be assembled in parts. First, the naval blockade, then aerial surveillance. Next, the interdictions of suspicious ships. Now, the possible airstrip near Isfahan. Each move indicates that the United States doesn't just want to contain Iran, they want to be ready to act if the regime insists on buying time. In the end, the message is simple and tough. Iran tries to show resistance, but it appears increasingly surrounded. A possible secret airfield was identified near a sensitive nuclear area. Ships continue to be stopped. Negotiations are stalled. And Trump keeps up the pressure on the point that worries Washington the most: the Iranian nuclear program. If this airstrip is connected to an American operation, the next phase could be a calculated military action aimed at striking the strategic heart of the regime. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.